for the first time ever, we actually get to see the Giberson Garden during spring. Every other time I've ever been here has been the summer or the fall. This is one of the most incredible gardens you guys will ever see. There is actually a playlist on the channel, because we've been here many times at this point, called the Giberson Garden. And it's definitely worth taking a look at. We've actually broken the garden down into sections here and there over the years, and just shown off Ram's incredible talent with mixing and matching texture and color. We're here in the spring, and there's more things that are flowering than there have been in the past, but this is still not what I would call a flower garden. There's always something flowering. There's always going to be something here for pollinators from probably 12 months out of the year, here in Athens, Georgia, except for the probably coldest 3 weeks of the winter. There's going to be something flowering here and available for pollinators, but it doesn't lean heavily into flowers. It leans more into, again, texture, color, the shapes of the plants, the various, the other strategy she uses, well, the main strategy she uses is plant thick and edit later, okay? And you're gonna see that as we go. So there are some bullies in this garden, and they occasionally are gonna need to be edited, but some of those bullies, desirable bullies we'll call them, are also blocking out weeds. Actually overall making it less maintenance in time, because there's nothing in here that wasn't planted with intent, okay? There's just some things that need to be reined in a bit, that can get a little bit out of control. There's water in there's no place in this garden you wouldn't go and not hear water in the background. I don't know how many, we've counted them in the past, I think 7 waterfalls in this garden. And so that sound carries through. If you guys have seen Ram on the channel, she is from Thailand, and this is her painting from home here in Athens, Georgia. There's a ton of native plants in here. There's a ton of Asian plants in here. There's actually way more natives than you would think, and I think I'm going to do a native plant video from this garden while we're here. So let's start walking around. I'm standing in the same place too long with so many beautiful things to see in this garden. But this one stream, the first waterfall that we're starting at here, has a stream that actually meanders. You can of course see the koi fish down in there, I think. Very large at this point. We'll see another koi pond, 2 more koi ponds down below this. But you can see how everything is very, very thick. In here. She has acaris along the edge over here, and it can be cut back if it's looking a little rough at the end of winter and the new growth come in. You don't have to. The new growth is on its way to come back out, and it'll cover it back up on its own, but you could cut that back. I don't know if I want to stand on the edge of the water to do that. So there'll be a couple weeks in the late winter probably where it may look a little rough like that, but by the time we come back, usually we're here in midsummer, and it's just the yellowest chartreuse grass leaning over into the water. It's beautiful. Few plants we'll point out as we go around. She has Italian cypress that she's using. There's a couple entryways here. The southeast can be kind of a tough place for Italian cypress. They're not going to be as perfect as you'll see them out west for sure with the humidity, but they do survive, and those are probably 20-25 feet. There are Japanese maples everywhere. There are containers everywhere. So all, lots of different cut leaf varieties, upright varieties, weepers throughout the garden. There's a ton of art and things you'll see in this garden, but she's definitely a clearance sale kind of, going and finding bargains and deals on pots. And she's told us over the years how she acquired all these things that are out here, and it seems like it's a lot of little artistic pieces throughout the garden, but she's been very smart in the way she collected them over the years. I love the use of, and we try to do this in our garden, the use of evergreen pieces. So there are conifers, hollies, all kinds of ground cover things that are evergreen, azaleas in there, lots and lots of evergreen plants throughout this garden, so that even in the dead of winter, you're going to see foliage in this garden, even when it, you know, there's a lot of things in here that obviously lose their leaves or go entirely back to the ground during the winter time. This garden is divided into rooms, and so this is one room we've kind of been in here. As you come down to the bottom of this and you have the lower waterfall. I think this is important, as you'll see in these waterfalls, is there's always an upper waterfall and then a lower waterfall in the pool. So you can hear the sound the same the entire way down. And it's kind of a way, you know, if you go up to the mountains in North Carolina and you see the way waterfalls are, small waterfalls on streams are, this is how they are. There's 2 or 3 tied together in a small space rather than just one giant waterfall falling into a pool. It's an interconnected stream. So Harry Lauder's walking stick behind that. So you'll notice that there's always a focal point at the end of any path, end of any trail, the back of a waterfall. You know, there's always some sort of focal point. You know, this one has the Italian cypress that just kind of leads you through here, and you want to go down in there and see what it is. There's always things being planted here. There's always she has basically a nursery here. So a lot of what you're seeing is she bought it once and then made lots out of them over time in order to fill this entire garden space. Since we were here last, she's actually added a little bit of furniture to a couple of patios that were back here that were, again, there's what you do in this garden, you reach a spot and then you make a decision. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 trails leading out of this circular patio. And so you don't know what's over there. You don't know what's down there. You see something that draws you in, an entryway into another space. But you don't necessarily know, you know, what's there until you get going. A lot of resilient plants here. This is not an irrigated garden. So there's containers, obviously a lot of containers, and she's got water run and hoses nearby them so that they can be watered and maintained. But the actual plants in the ground aren't being maintained like that on a daily basis. So you have to have resilient things. And what you do, again, you plant thick and you edit later, and then they'll figure it out, right? They have to figure it out, because if you're not watering, I think, again, I've said in the past, a lot of people are going to think that planting this thick requires more water. But what actually happens here is any water that actually falls, and this Athens, Georgia is going to get a lot, you know, over the course of the year, probably 45 to 50 inches of rain. That rain is going to stay here, okay? There's the leaves that have been left on the ground, the mulch that's been added over the years, the way these roots have, you know, broken the soil up everywhere. Any rain that falls here, it didn't leave in this property. And so they're able to take advantage of all of that. A lot of us have very compact soil, recent construction, and you can get 50 inches of rain in a year, 40 inches of rain, or whatever you get, and half of that just wash off the property, you know, completely. There's no like gutters on this house washing all the water out. The gutters are run into spaces to capture the water and slow it down. We'll see some waterworks coming up to manage what is a very big slope, actually. Front to back on this property is probably 30 feet. What do you think, Steph? Probably something like that, ultimately. So there are some strategies she's implemented here to slow that water down. But it's absolutely incredibly designed space. One fun thing I'll point out that's blooming right now is this Byzantine gladiola. I think if I've read this story correctly, this was actually brought to Beaufort, South Carolina back in the 1500s. This is a Mediterranean gladiola, straight species, but it's been in the southeast United States. I think it's like zone 6 hardy, if I remember correctly, on this plant. But it's such a we've seen these gladiolas every time we've been here with that thin, strappy foliage and kind of a bluish, thin, strappy foliage, but no flowers on them because we've always been here much later during the season. But that's kind of a fun one to see. Just a plant that you don't see in every, you know, it's just she'll find things that not everybody has has used. And I will show you a couple more of those as we continue to walk around. I think I'm gonna try to head back that way, Steph, behind you. You can spin them slowly. Again, so each of these entrances or exits from a patio will be flanked by something. This one's flanked by a Poncirus or Flying Dragon, Hardy Orange, and a Magnolia, you know, on the other side that would have bloomed much earlier during the season. This Magnolia, of course, could have been a shrub. This Poncirus could have been a shrub, but instead they've been lifted over time and opportunity has been created for other things to be planted under them. And I actually, and then things that will, some flowering things, some non-flowering things. Again, you got to come, there's all of these evergreen plants I'm talking about that are in here. When you plant thick and edit later, you do have to come in here occasionally and make sure your evergreen plants, your small mounding shrubs, your ground cover evergreens are rescued occasionally. I think this bench has been added since the last time we were here. Won't take long before we're back to the sound of water up here. The yellow bamboo is in a contained space, so it can't get out and about. At one time it was out and about, and the whole garden had to be cleaned up. The black bamboo on the other side of the fountain back here seems to be struggling. I don't know what's going on with it, but they're in a concrete contained space so that they can be here without being problematic. This is another one of these spaces where this one's the opposite of the other one. The other one, the big waterfall was at the top, and then it fell down a creek, which had a couple small waterfalls, and then there was a basin with a waterfall down at the bottom. This one has multiple small waterfalls up at the top, and then it goes down a creek, and the large waterfall's actually at the bottom, in the pool at the bottom. It's just an opposite take on the one from up top. You hear all this water noise in this garden all the time. I love how this Japanese maple hangs over these two pools. Water just rushes out from under it. Basically, it looks like how nature would have designed it. That's kind of her skill, is to make it look like it was always there. It's like 4 little separate waterfalls coming into that pool, 2 separate waterfalls coming into that other pool, and then a little river that runs down from there. We're going to walk around the garden and come back up this spot, so you can see it from the bottom down there. I love how, you know, this acorus that's just poking out of the rock here, this rock that the patio was built around. I've shown this before. This is a patio that was built around a rock, but this rock wasn't here either. This rock was put here so that the patio could be built around it to make it look like this was always like this. It's just such a skillful piece of design that Ram is so good at. The other thing is, again, plants are allowed to kind of go where they want to go. There's strawberry begonia in bloom all over the garden right now. Looks really, really beautiful. It's beautiful with or without the flowers on it. But you can see back there in the back of that pool, it's been allowed to just kind of go where it wanted to go and ends up under that rock. Now the rock has moss on it because of the constant moisture, and the rock and the moss and the strawberry begonia look like it's been there 1,000 years, you know, and it's just so amazing to me. Another example of that, well, I should show them the Blatilla first. This is the Chinese ground orchid, which actually do quite well here in our area in the ground. We have this at the house from Ram, of course. This is the green version with the kind of pinkish purple flowers, and then we have a variegated one that has the pinkish purple flowers. There's also a white one out here as well. Beautiful cryptomeria, barberry that's been limbed up. But the Japanese painted fern, you know, that was put in the rock and then now has been allowed to spread throughout the rocks. The other thing about all the rock that's been added to this garden is that that's another way in which to capture water. Have you ever flipped over a rock that didn't have a little bit of moisture under it? You know, that rocks are good at keeping that moisture up close to the ground, you know. And you come up here to the top of these steps, more of the ground orchid. A lot of that in this garden where something is carried from one spot to another. So there, you know, there's the white flowering Blatilla. We might leave here with a little clump of that. We'll see if Ram we can find some spot out here, because we have the variegated and the green foliage with the pink. Japanese maples again, everywhere, which are part of the art of this garden. 2 of them here. This lawn area, super interesting. This is the entire lawn for the back garden. And there's always something that leads you to another thing. You're tempted to walk through that back there. This has been one of my favorite spaces over the years in this garden. I did an entire video on the playlist devoted to this space and the fact that it's actually waterworks is what it is. The driveway is way up above our head. All the water coming off this side of the house and that driveway are rushing water through this side of the property. And so a lot of the stonework you see here, a lot of the gravel, a lot of the planting is designed to capture and slow this water, slow it down, slow it down, slow it down, so you can get it in the ground. I think the way that this would have been solved by most landscapers, probably even including me back when I started landscaping, would have been to put some sort of grate at the back of this, at the top of this driveway, allow that water to rush into it and pipe it and have it somebody else's problem. You know, which is literally the way most water issues are done. Just push it down the line, push it to the lower spot, push it to the lower spot. But this is designed for a healthy garden. And for a healthy garden, you need to water. You need to water in the ground. You just can't let it destroy everything on its way to that. There's nothing formal about this garden, obviously, but there's always something like this where you get kind of 2 plants, you know, inviting you into a space with some sort of symmetry to them. And then the next place is, you know, something different. Again, oak leaf hydrangeas, we've never been here when they've been blooming. Rhododendrons up at the top of the hill, if you can spin around there, Steph, and show. So again, that driveway up there's 15 to 20 feet above where we're standing already, and there's another, you know, 200 yards of path to go downhill here. So it's quite a drop off in this garden. There are hellebores and other various things. I covered this entire thing in a video where all of the stone and rock has been laid down here, and then it goes to a flat space, and then it's captured in here. So that when it rains heavily, this is going to fill in with water, and then it's going to drain down into the ground. There's a bunch of these. So if this gets overwhelmed, the next one will capture some, and the next one will capture some. So the point is to try to not put it off on the neighbor, but have the water get down into the water table where it belongs. I've done a walking tour here with just a silent walking tour, a couple of them now, one later in the year, and then one that you will have seen before this video actually goes up, going up the steps here up to the driveway. So this is the driveway rail up there is beautiful. Then you're in it feels like the humidity comes up as you walk into this spot. The stone is covered in moss. This was just stone laid on top of the ground. Nothing formal about this, and then the moss has been allowed to take it over. A lot of interesting plants in here. This is a boxwood. It needs a little bit of rescuing. It's that time of year. Things come out and grow so fast in the spring, they start to eat one another a bit. That is a super underused boxwood. Really different foliage on it. It's one I plan on talking about in the upcoming talk I have. Lots of camellias out here. Of course, the camellias become background pieces, you know, during the rest of the year, but of course they would have been flowering in the winter. One thing, Steph, let's try to get this calycanthus. Here's a native calycanthus right here. Typically you won't smell it until late afternoon or early evening, but it smells like applesauce. when they moved into this neighborhood, they were one of the first houses, and they started clearing the lots on the other side of the road from them and on a cul-de-sac across the street. And she rescued a lot of the native plants that were over there for this garden while she had an opportunity. But this calycanthus and several other things that are out here that were already in the neighborhood. So not only native, but literally native to this neighborhood. But she's, again, limbed it up into a small tree. What I'm fascinated about this calycanthus is usually they colonize and take over a big space. This one is actually only occupying a very small space. And I'm sure she's doing some editing, but I just don't see any suckering with that one. A small amount, but more clumping. So kind of interested in taking cuttings off of that and see if it's actually a thing with that one, that it wouldn't sucker quite as much, because that's one of the issues people have with that plant. So getting down here to the bottom, here's another spot on the back of a waterfall. Again, trying to take advantage of every opportunity to get this water down into the ground. So this is like the last spot here to try to capture this water and have her plants be able to take advantage of it, and of course the build the groundwater back up as well. Absolutely love Rhodia japonica. Here it is in it's up, it's elevated, so it's not going to sit in water down here, but it's getting enough moisture that's really kept it healthy and really looks great. The little dwarf cryptomeria next to it, you just get these composite, this I don't know how she does this. Really, I wish I had this skill to mix and match things. And I think there's we do a little of this. We're in a small garden in Raleigh. I think it's sometimes a matter of taking something, laying it there for a minute before you plant it, and then deciding whether it belongs there or not at that point. But just an incredible combination of ground cover plants mixed together. I've talked about this garden being high shade. They've limbed the trees way up in time, then they've limbed the shrubs way up. This corner though, right this minute, has gotten a little dark. The leaves coming out this spring probably need to go in here and do a 10% thinning of this understory to get a little more light down here. It's very dark, much darker than I've ever seen it down here. But that's what she does. She just lifts the plants, creates the light that reflects in here. And so where you see it as a shady space and you're definitely under the canopy of trees, they're up so high that enough light's still able to get under there that some of these things that would like a little more sun are doing well with things that really want all day shade or lots of shade. There's another path that goes back in here. If you haven't seen the walking tour, there's always a corner here. She has, again, water run to areas so that she can have containers in spaces, and then she uses the mailbox to keep her tools in. There's several mailboxes here in the garden for that. It's a nice little addition to stay organized. This spot's always been one of our favorites in the lower part of the garden. Waterfall with 3 tiers coming off the back. No fish in this one, but it's great sound in this bottom corner. You would never know you were in the city. I mean, you never know you had neighbors with this much background noise. She's had to do some editing down here over the last few years, and conversations we've had with her when we've come. It was time to take some of these shrubs down hard. And so a lot of this, the loropetalum that's back here, the yakuba, this loropetalum, other things, but she didn't do them all at once. So last year she came in here and cut maybe 50% of the shrubs, the leafy evergreen shrubs, back really hard, and they've come back out from that pretty nicely. This year she's come in here and done another group. So there's some pruning that you're seeing, but as long as you don't do it all at once, it's no big deal. That camellia will flush back out really, really quickly from that pruning. But the other things are now filling back in from that hard pruning. This goes back up to that lawn space that we were looking down from earlier, there's 2 arbors interconnected in there to lead you back up to that lawn, and then a back trail at the bottom here. Again, there's really no way to garden a space like this without this trail system. This trail system allows for these low, interesting ground cover things at ground level, and then this progression of middle-sized shrubs, larger growing shrubs, shrubs that can be tree formed, trees, you know, and then so on, it's small ornamental trees, and then the shade trees that are back here. So this path is what allows for that design. And it's all different kinds of materials. I bet these little circular concrete things were on sale somewhere at some point, and so it transitions to those for a minute, and then it'll transition back to some, you know, oh, the rock that you see here, the boulders that you see here were, when they moved in here and started this project, there was a road cut happening up the road where they were blasting some rock for here in Athens, and they brought them the stone to this. So this was, that's a big part of this garden, is all this stone, but it was pretty lucky that they were able to get a lot of it was waste material, literally waste material from construction. This is the bottom of this. Steph and I actually went through this one time in a separate video that you can see, where we talked about the strawberry begonias and the Asiatic jasmine and the blue rug, or actually there's Parsons juniper, Procumbens Nana juniper, there's strawberry begonia on the back. We went through all of the ground covers that were in this area in a separate video, just to show. I love how the moss is on the waterfall up there. It's just art. All of it has settled into to art here. And if coming up from the back of that waterfall, obviously you see the koi fish down here. They've got a deep space down in there, so if any animal comes and tries to grab them, they've got a really deep little shelf down there that they can hide in. If you're going back up from that, you can see all the layering that's up above this waterfall. It's really quite beautiful. There's a Japanese snowball, there's a Chinese snowball viburnum back there, a Japanese snowball viburnum, and an Eastern snowball viburnum that were all overlapping just a bit back there. They're different sizes. It's an incredibly beautiful space and incredibly serene. There's an Edgeworthia here. It's underplanted by boxwood. One thing, and I'm not going to have Steph turn it back around again. She'll come through here and trim one of these boxwoods into really kind of a formal little boxwood. And then there's one back behind the camera that wasn't pruned that's a little more shaggy. And it's just, I don't know, it's just the combination of them. But almost always when you're transitioning to something, there'll be two kind of formal or matching pieces to transition you to the next space. This back line, we had talked about, I guess it was 2 years ago when we had this conversation with her about cutting this stuff hard. And so when we were here last time in the fall, this stuff had been cut down to, to this, and now it's flushing back out. But some of it needed a hard reset. Some of the ground cover stuff needed to be thinned. And so that was done back here. So this is in the process of all flushing back out. But, when you cut something hard like that, the new foliage that comes back is so nice and crispy, and ton of salvia in this garden, always pretty, always resilient. But these some of these salvias will bloom spring and fall and then kind of stop during the middle of the summer. I'm sure something, the summer blooming salvias will take over at that point. But it's just one ground cover into the next ground cover. You got the hellebores, just one ground cover into the next ground cover. Few things need some tough love in here still, but that's the process. you know, that it doesn't all need to be done today. Right now, a lot of it's just protecting the ground, but at some point you got to say, oh no, you can't go that far over there. You got to come back. This is another one of these transition spots. She basically has a nursery here, and she's actually been selling plants off the driveway with her Ram's Nursery. All these Japanese maples that she's got here, and lots of other things. But then she'll also use them back in this garden if a hole ends up in here. There's a Deutzia tree, and I have to say that I never knew Deutzia become such a 4-season plant. You've got the exfoliating bark on this tree-formed Deutzia. So you're getting the flowers here in the spring, and then she's limbed it up into a tree over time, and it has exfoliating bark. I'm sure in the wild, this is how it would grow. In our ornamental gardens, we tend to treat these things as, you know, whatever the tag said. It said 6 feet tall, so I'm going to keep it 6 feet tall. This one didn't read the tag, as you can see. We'll go down around here and we'll work our way up to the chickens, and maybe around to that star jasmine. So as you can see, part of the art here is the shades of green. Some of these soft textured conifer with really light green foliage coming out. Contrasting stuff was just showing you the clerodendron that are up there, which have actually gotten a little bit out of control. There's several clerodendron species that we have. They're Asian plants that have been brought here that can they need some control added to them for sure. But I love the shades of green through this lower part of the garden, and this spot's gotten a little dark too. I think that probably needs to be lifted up again. But there are plants down here, full sun plants, like this Indian hawthorn. This Indian hawthorn would 100% say full sun on the tag. It's a little looser than it would be otherwise, and it obviously has not flowered as much. It only has a few flower clusters on it, but the plant looks great. It's actually performing quite well, and would almost certainly been an understory plant wherever it came from. Anyway, this gold euonymus that Steph's focusing on here. I'll show you another thing here too. Another way she's using a lot of the cut material. She has 3 compost bins up at the top that will be, I showed in the walkthrough video that you will have seen already. And then these cuts are a lot of the stuff that's cut off is just piled somewhere. They're wildlife habitat, stuff that will break down in time. You don't want to tote all the way back up the hill. As you can see, you got to have this fenced off. She has deer out in the front garden that she has to worry about, but this back garden is fenced off. Deer are walking up here to the side. I think they definitely like to be back here for sure. This is a treat compared to the wooded spaces back here behind them. Which are, you know, they've basically eaten the entire understory out of this wooded area, as you can see on the other side of the fence over there. But they can't get in here and do that. They would, though. They would lift the entire, you know, as Steph and I hike in a lot of wooded spaces here in the southeast now, you can see in the understory, like you can see where the trail is out a half a mile in front of you because of the deer have lifted the woodland up. Large Osmanthus fragrans here that were just cut back. That thing will flush back out with all that red new foliage on it really quickly. But again, they needed some control. They needed some control, and so it was time. There is that's Indigofera that Steph just had the camera on back there that's in full bloom right now in the pea family. Chicken coop back here. How old did she say the chickens are now? 10 years old. I think they're 10 years old. They're still laying though, so she's they got a pretty nice a nice space back here. They're usually talking a little more than this. Few things recently pruned. It seems like this side of the garden is getting most of the attention right now. Some things that are, again, some controls being added in a couple of spaces. We'll go take a couple right and a left, and then we'll wrap this up with this is a side of the garden over here I've never spent much time in, but there's no part of this garden that's not detailed in some way. We did miss the early flowering things like the azaleas, except for this one. We're kind of in between. Gardenias will be blooming in a few weeks. There's a lot of gardenias in this garden. They're all budded up like crazy. There's one here, my arm on. Really happy, beautiful native dogwood stuck in between these giant boulders that again were from a road cut here. It wasn't a rock. There wasn't a rock on this property, but there's boulder the size of a car laying there. It's pretty wild. The duck. And we'll wrap this little walking tour up. Again, we'd never been here during the spring season when everything is coming out kind of lush and perfect. The star jasmine vine, another one of these mini kind of entries into another garden space. It's just been pruned on a bit, so it has just absolutely perfect right now. But it's in full flower, and as you can imagine, you know, again, if this was smell-o-vision, you'd know how powerful the fragrance is on star jasmine. So there you go. Thank you guys so much for following along. There is a playlist, and so if we walked past a bunch of plants that you didn't know what they were, this garden is broken down into several other shorter videos, just concentrating on a very small space. There are a lot of things in this garden to appreciate for sure. Thanks for watching.